Let me know. Or do you want me to tell her to join us to help us first? Or are you okay? How did I?
Yeah, we're good to go. I'm already recording. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, hello.
Yeah. So are you able to?
Yeah, it's already recording.
Oh, good. I didn't know.
Yeah.
All right. So good evening once again, and I welcome you again to today's class, and that's still Introduction to Software Testing, Manual Testing predominantly. And I'm still Yemi Ayola. So I'll still be your tutor again for tonight. So what our intention, what we're going to do today is first, I always like to do a recap because recap will still bring back memories of things that you've done previously, then we'll move on. But today we'll finish Stlc and Sdlc. We have done that yesterday, but I'll do a recap of it. Then Stlc will finish, look at how defects are being what the different status of defects. So we are going to look at that today, and that's it. That's what we're going to do today. Then I'll give you some time to also ask me questions at any time. Then let me know if you have anything. So yesterday, what we did yesterday was mainly Sdlc, and that's Software Development Life Cycle. That's the acronym, and I talked about different models of Sdlc. I talked about the pros and cons, that's the advantages and disadvantages. Then as I was doing it, I was also explaining the concept of the understanding with testing while we were doing this. So I just said software development life cycle, so which is, there are different ones, which you guys did fantastic well after the self-assessment questions yesterday after the class. It was a great one. I was impressed that people were at least following it. Today, I'm not going to take much of the time because I know you've just finished from one class, but hopefully we're going to finish up Sdlc and Stlc. So examples are this: Rational Unified Process, Spiral, V-Model, Scrum, Kanban. We've got the Waterfall and Agile, V-Model, Waterfall and V-Model. So let's take these three. I told you that these three brothers are the main ones that they are streamlined to. And I talked about waterfall, the linear model. I talked about the V model, the sequential developmental model. And I talked about the iterative incremental development model, which is agile. So that takes us to, we defined what Sdlc is, which we talked about it. That is a process that produces software with high quality and low cost in short time possible. So Sdlc provides a well-structured flow of phases that helps an organization to quickly produce high-quality software, which is well tested and ready for production use. So those were the reason. I gave an example of this life cycle. Just for you to have a big understanding of life cycle, I took the life cycle of a chicken. I used it as an example. I also used we humans, how we were formed, how everything started, and we got to adulthood. So all this, from the egg to the embryo, hatchling, chick, and to the adult. So that's the life cycle of chicken. We've got human life cycle, we've got software development life cycle, which that's what we were dealing with yesterday. So just facts about Sdlc. So we know the acronym of that is software development lifecycle. It is called, it is also called software development process. So it's a framework define, defining tasks performed at each step in the software development process. So that's just the facts about it. So we took this again just to explain and like to do it severally. The more you listen to things, it sticks. So that's why. So it refers to, SDLC refers to a methodology. It is a methodology which clearly defines processes for creating high quality software. In details, SDLC methodology focuses on the following phases. We've got the requirement analysis, we've got planning, we've got software design, such as architectural design, we've got the software development, we've got testing, and the last of it, we've got deployment. So I gave an example of, gave this picture of software development life cycle. So we start from requirement analysis to design, design to development, development, testing, testing to maintenance, which I did explain everything in details. So this is the first model of one of the methodology that we use. So it is waterfall. I told you from the picture is what we, that's the concept behind the testing. Those are the things that we want you, that's the understanding we are bringing, and that's why you see it is waterfall. So if you're on the waterfall, this is how it comes down. It's a fall. So, and I said each phase is here have there's different phases to it, requirement, design, deployment, but each phase must finish before the other. Each phase must finish before the other. So requirement will finish first, design second, then it must be in phases. It doesn't work together. So which I explained. So one phase must finish before the next one begins. So we talked about the requirements, which is user and business requirements are defined. We talked about the design, system design, architectural design. We talked about the deployment, that's code implementation. We talked about testing, so our test plan, test cases, test scripts, system test, all this deployment. Then we talked about maintenance. We explained the advantage, which is, we said it's good if you have smaller projects, which we all understand, well understood by everybody, then it's good. The disadvantage is that complete a stage before moving to the next. If something is wrong in the in later stage, there is no chance of going back. So it's just a way. If we use it for complex projects, waste of time, resources. So it's a drawback. Then we started looking at each of those phases that we talked about, requirement gathering and analysis. So this is what it entails for us as tester. We understand the proposal put forth by the customer, and then we gather the requirements for suitable solution. Then we looked at planning and design. Planning and design. So this is when you elaborate on a project plan for meeting those requirements laid out by the customers. For example, someone asked, how would we know yesterday when it was maybe Julius, Debbie, and or every one of you were asking the question that how we will know what requirements, how are we going to know the test case to write and what requirements are given. So I gave you an example. Take an example of a login. You know what it is. And if you are given a user story, I stated the user story yesterday, which we all know the end product, what exactly the user story is talking about. But I said to you again and again is that every acceptance criteria, every details mentioned there must be scripted. When I mean scripted, test cases must be in your script. Everything must be touched to have a good test coverage. Then we talked about building. Building are actually talking about code now. The code is done by a developer. It could be single, it could be several developers. So the next thing we talked about testing, which is you and I. Now the code have been written, we want to test it, ensure it's properly tested, search for bug and ensure it's bug free. Then we talked about deployment. Deployment now, we have found the error, we've eliminated, we deployed. So we want to put it in an environment where the customers can use it, where people, public can use it. That's the deployment phase. Now we'll talk about the maintenance. Of course, there are things that will happen, maybe software config, is it maybe some initial tweak to the software. We want this, we want that. So those are the maintenance phases. Now that takes us to the V model. So this is continuation also of the Sdlc. This is the V model methodology, and here about we're talking about verification and validation. But the concept behind this, if you look at it, is V. So, and I told you yesterday, to every verification phase, there is a validation phase to it. So when you have a user requirement, you have an acceptance testing to validate against it. And don't forget, I told you, I mentioned those two words, verification, validation. Remember, the first one, verification, that we are ensuring that the product is the right product we're building. Now, validation is now that are we actually building the product? How do we know? Is it the intention of the user? Is this what the user wants? Now you are validating what the product, that is what it means. So then the next thing is we talked about each of the phases, the verification phase and validation phase, which I explained just all the things that happens there, just the key things. Those are just the bullet point, like the user acceptance, the business and user requirement. So detailed requirements of the software system to be developed are gathered from the client. So what the acceptance test in against it, what we are meant to do is involve testing the product in the user environment. That is our own. That is the the verification to validate to the validation phase of the business requirements stage. So that's the testing to validate it. So anything you do on the verification phase, remember you must always validate it. So that's why they go hand in hand. Then that's equality of what to do with code. That's the continuation. This is still the diagram. Then we've got this is the verification. Are you building the right product? That is the question you're asking. That's the verification. Validation. Are you building the right product? Yes. Does it meet the user's needs as intended? That's it. Then we've got the advantage. Testing early in the life cycle, thereby enhancing the probability of building an error-free and good quality product. But the major disadvantage is that is a major drawback. Once anything fails at any stage, you have to update all the documents involved. So if any changes happens in midway, then the test documents along with requirement documents must be updated. So that's the major. Then we've got this, which is the incremental iterative developmental model, which is the agile methodology, which I said you currently will be working in an agile environment. So we said requirements are broken down into multiple standalone. What does standalone? You are doing something alone, 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 stand alone. I'm standing alone. So I'm testing in bits, one phase first, models of software development lifecycle. So I gave an example of this picture, which is an incremental phase, is when you finish one, and we've all agreed we are happy, we keep the code, we add another one to it until you get to the final bit. So each iteration passes through first iteration, requirement, design, coding, testing, software, all this has to done first iteration. You do again, second iteration. You do again third, so until you get to the final product, which is the final iteration outputs. So talked about partial partially developed delivered product. This process is repeated until entire product development is completed. The repetition of these processes are called iteration. So when is when is it used? There is a need to get the basic functionality delivered faster. So anytime we need basic functionality to be delivered faster, then you can use this. For example, I gave you maybe a website. You know you want to build a website. You don't need to be finished building the website before you release it and tell us. If you've just done the landing page, send it. Let's test it. Let's look at it. Let's send it to the users. They confirm to say yes, we are happy with what is happening. Then we move again. That's it. So that's when you can use it. You are negotiating, you are getting feedback, everyone is involved. So a sign off, if there's any tweak at any point in time, is being accommodated. So what are the pros? Quick delivery to the market. Customers can provide feedback to each product increment. This thus avoiding surprises at the end of development. Requirement changes can be easily accommodated. What's the disadvantage? It requires effective planning of iteration. So that takes us to the diagram of it, just for us to see what this means. So I said requirement, analysis, design, coding, then the first iteration. Um, it moves to the next iteration, requirement, analysis, design, coding. The second increment is done. So we add another thing. After we have done login, we have done search. No, we want to add payment. So that's the next phase of it. We add requirement, analysis, design, coding. Then that's the third increment. So at every phase until we get to the final product. That's it. That takes us to another diagram of it, just for us to see. I told you about it. Definition of ready. Are we ready to start? Do we have all the information? Do we know what is expected? Yes, we do. Then we put everything that we know. We have all the information. We've spoken to the stakeholders. Spoken to the client. We have everything, all the necessary information. Now, where is the bucket to put it? We take it to the backlog. What is the backlog? It's a big container where all these things are broken down and put inside. So you put it inside this container. That's the backlog. So when you put it inside that container, is this container will be going to, if I want to pick apple, pick orange, I'll pick apple and orange and put it first in this sprint. That's what it means. So we pick login, and if it's login we want to pick for this sprint, we pick it from this bucket. So that's the way we do. That's the way it's done. So once you pick it from this bucket, it goes into sprint. What a sprint? I explained to you. Sprint can be fortnightly. So I ensure that. So just make sure that anytime you go for interview, they can ask you in your interviews that how long does your sprint take? You just tell them it's a 2 weekly sprint. Is a fortnight sprint. Fortnight is 2 weekly. So you can tell them it's 2 weekly. Oh, have you ever has it gone over before? Oh, yes, maybe going to 3 weeks, but it depends. But ensure that it's 2 weeks. Most organization, everybody will know what Agile and Manifesto is all about. It's meant to be 2 weekly. But some, I told you, could get to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It depends on how releases has done. It depends on the product or the application you are actually trying to deliver. So I told you from sprint, it goes into development. While the development, I told you that we testers will be preparing, writing our script, our test plan, test strategy, putting all that in place, which I told you that we are going to be taught in this class how to design all these documents. And then after development, it goes into testing. We test, we do our regression test, functional test, non-functional testing, retesting of all bug fixes. If it's a cross, if we need cross-browser testing, we put it, performance testing. All these are done at this space. Then it goes to integration. This is also part of testing. We move down to say, oh yes, everything is in line. Has it been this thing? Is the login going as expected? Is it linked? Then from there, it goes further down to delivery. Now we take it, we deliver it to the client to say, yes, we have given it, this is in a client environment. Are you happy with it? Do you like the login? Is this your expectation? Oh, we want you to tweak this. If we quickly do it and we fix it. And once it's done, we add it, we send it back. Are you happy now? Yes, yes, we are happy. We move to the next sprint. That is it. Then that is when we are done. Now, again, we just is just another way to say this is another agile um, diagram just to see requirement, the first build, design and development. We go into testing, implementation. We go into the next build, design and development, testing, implementation. So each iteration, this is also an iteration. You go on the first build, the second build, third build, until you get to the final build. So that takes us to software testing life cycle. So this is where I'm going to start again today. And yesterday we talked mainly, I started with Stlc. I said software testing life cycle is you and I. This is now restricted to us. The development life cycle, software development life cycle, is for the whole team. You see, when I showed you that um, the diagram of from definition of ready to definition of done, if you could see that diagram, it involves every one of us coming to play. That's the developers, the business analysts, everyone are inside that team. Now, what is our own process? How can we know that yes, we are doing the right thing? We are giving good coverage. This one now has to do with software testing lifecycle, you and I, and which I started with requirement analysis, test planning, um, and I told you that this thing is revolving around one of our process that we did initially when we did the introduction, the very beginning, to now say, oh, our fundamental test process. Everything is what we have in the software testing lifecycle. So it's coming into it now. So test planning, we do requirement analysis, and that is the first phase. Once we have the requirements, we start test planning. So now the BAs have given us the requirement, the user stories, the specification. Then we as testers, we start doing the test planning. Forget our first rule in the fundamental process is test planning and control. That is where our phase starts. Then the next thing we do, the next phase of it is, the next phase of it is test design, and that's our second process is test design and analysis. We do an environment test setup because before we can execute, before we can implement, we must have an environment. What environment are we going to test? So we need an environment to set up. So that will be done by the environment team or test team, the developers. Those can give us an environment. Then we got the test execution. This is our third phase, test execution and test implementation and execution. Then the final stage is test closure. And that's our number 5, which says after after your level 4, you have done evaluating exit criteria and reporting, then you do a test closure report. Now, I've taken also some facts about Stlc. So let's take the Stlc acronym. We know what it stands for. It stands for Software Testing Lifecycle. Stlc is a sequence of different activities performed by testing team. That's just the only thing I'm trying to emphasize. Testing team to ensure the quality of software or the of software or the product. Remember, Stlc, Sdlc. You might be asked in interviews. Please bear in mind. So that's our major thing. So what is the role of STSC? What is your role? Our role as testers. So the first thing is, even with the most talented, highly skilled teams of developer, mistakes can still happen as a result of human nature. You know that. Then the next thing, the role of software testing lifecycle is to identify any mistakes that have been made and find solutions for them, helping to maintain the quality of every piece of software produced and ensuring that the project requirements are met. That is where we ensure that we've got good test coverage. I'm going to explain to you at the later part what test coverages are, what is the RO. So these are the key things of what we software. So now I'm going to start with the face. So STLC, it also have faces. We've got like 6 of them. So the software testing lifecycle consists of 6 main phases, each which involves specific actions designed to ensure that a high standard of performance and quality is achieved. What are the 6 phases? The first one is requirement analysis. You say that we are still going back. The next one is test planning. Remember? Then the next thing is test case development. This, you as a tester, this is your job. These things that you see here, 2, 3, fantastic. This is what is you. Test case development, test planning, environment setup. We've got the test execution. That is your role. That is we doing that. Test cycle closure. So let's take it one after the other to understand what it is. What are the activities in requirement analysis? What are the activities? First, you identify the type of test to be performed and assigned to the development. Then the next thing, we gather details about testing priorities and focuses. What exactly do we want to test? What is our positive scenario, our negative scenario? What are the criteria that needs to be met? What are the steps that we need to put? What are the gaps? What are the risks? We need to put all this in place when we're analyzing. Prepare the requirement traceability matrix. What is requirement traceability matrix? Take an example. I gave you an example of a login scenario. Let's take a login scenario. In that login, we have said it must have minimum of 8 characters. And the character should include special character, capital letter, lowercase, numbers, things like that. It should be alphanumeric. So I've given you like 5 rules. So the first test you want to do is to make sure that the first one that says 8 character minimum. So your first test should do lower than 8. Do the happy part 8. Then you can do more. Do 10, do 20, just to make sure that you've covered every edge case, all the boundaries to ensure that is working. I'm going to explain this when it comes to test case design. That's then when you are done, you want to take those test cases you have designed. You will go back to the story, to the requirements, and look at it. At this requirement, we were asked it should be 8 character. Do I have tests to validate that? Yes, I have both positive and negative tests. The one for 7, 8, 11, 12. I've written those test cases. So you tick that, it means that test case has been covered. It says it must be alphanumeric. Did I test it? All alphabet? Or does it have mixture of alphabets and numbers? You have done that. It should have special character. Did I test it with special character? So those tests needs to be linked to the story so that that is what will give you a good coverage, so that you will be able to know if there is any gap, anything you did not cover. Once you cover everything in the requirement, now if there is an issue, it's not you this time around. Because when they ask you that in this requirement, what are the scripts you have written, you bring it out and they map it to it, and you have mapped it already. This script login as 10 test cases. No, the numbers, the characters have 10 test cases. The 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 special character has 5 test cases. So you have everything linked to it. Then it's easier for you to be able to say, I have a good coverage. No one will now say, even if some were not covered, it wasn't in the requirement. So, though we as testers, we should also think out of the box. That is how you break a system. That is how you break an application. You must think out of the box. Also, identify test environment details where testing is supposed to be carried out. So know which test environments you're going to use. You're going to use it in your test environment. You'll be sent an endpoint. Conduct automation visibility analysis if needed. You asked the question yesterday, and I answered regarding what are automation candidates. We call them automation candidates. Login is an automation candidate because it's something that is frequently used. It's got a lot of traffic, so we want to make it easier and roader. So that's the first one. Deliverables of requirement analysis. What are the deliverables? RTM, requirement traceability metrics. So now this document maps and trace requirements proposed by the client with test cases to ensure that every requirement has an associated set of test case against it. I'm giving you this big word because I always, this thing, when you do RTM is once you're writing manual test cases and you present RTM, believe you me, people will know this person is an expert in what he does. So because this, most of the time, we all forget to do this. Most of the time, a lot of people don't do it. What I do is that if you are using a spreadsheet, my first page document will have to say, oh, designed by this tester, though any additional information, comments, I make sure that there's space. Oh, at 12th of October 2022, 10th, 28th of June 2023, I've added new test cases. That's it. That's just a line. In that test case that I've added, I will go into my metrics. So once you see the first page, you don't need to look further. You would know how many test scripts I've written for each of the requirements that I have, because I'm going to give you a list of the requirements and I will put associated test cases. Now, for example, you have Azure DevOps where you're going to be writing your test cases inside. When you write a test case, an ID is attached to the test case. I make it even easier. I put another column to say, maybe I'm using TFS. Team Foundation Server is one of the two. It's just like Azure DevOps. I'll put Azure DevOps ID and I'll write the IDs there. So you don't, whosoever picks up that traceability doesn't need to do much problem. He or she needs to just pick the number, put it in Azure DevOps. It will see the scripts. So they know that, oh, for her to put 10 scripts here, she's got good number of coverage. She's written 30 scripts for this. Is number of coverage. Then we can now go inside to look, oh, are these scripts Did they match it? That's the way we review as leads, as managers. That's the way we review scripts written by our fellow colleagues. So we do it, and you can also do that. So, what is automation visibility report, if applicable? This report will be produced as a result of analyzing the project, working out what screens have components that can have automation tests written against them, the complexity of writing the automation test, whether the test cases handle large amounts of test data, among other factors. So these are things that you put as criteria when you're looking at doing your visibility study when you want to have an automation candidate. These are the deliverables for requirements analysis. So that takes us to the next stage, test planning. What is this about? The test planning phase is usually conducted by QA manager. I would explain that phase again. I said by QA manager. Now let's take it here. This QA manager, I'm a manager. I've got people under me. I cannot do everything. I can tell you, tester A, can you write I've got like 4 5 work streams under me with me, and I've got maybe 8 testers there. You won't sit alone. So I'll say no. Um, tester A, work stream A, can you all come together and who is the lead there? Design the test script. He or she design test script. Share it with the testers. Bring your bring together, brainstorm, and have a document. So it's conducted. You look at the word I used. I didn't say written. I purposely changed the word to make sure that it's conducted by a QA manager. I'm not going to write it. It's not meant for the manager to write. It's meant for you and I. Whosoever is working on the project has to write that document. Because most of the time, people take it that is a QA manager. But no, I'll tell you predominantly that I always write my script, be it a lead, be it me as a tester in any place. You have to design it. I don't always I'm using the word write now so that you can understand it literally. I don't use write, I use design. Design, design is like you're writing it, but you have to make things look big as if no she's doing you understand, that's the big words. We don't want to be saying, oh, I'm going to write the test plan. No, it doesn't look professional. Just tell them, I'll design the test plan. We know what you want to do is the same thing as writing. And some of the time we got a lot of templates. You all here are going to design your test plan. And if I say you're going to design your test plan, if you're in a group, if you're just maybe 2 or 3 testers there, 3 of you have to come together to design that test plan. Don't forget the test plan you're going to do. In that test plan, there are a lot of things there. So tester A will have ownership of maybe 3 to 4 3 to 4 sub paragraphs there. Tester B equally, so that you will take ownership of it. When you share that, it will give you most of the time. When we started testing, I can tell you 15 years ago, I can bring out my script for you. 15, 20 years, I can tell you, I'll bring it out for you. What I did then, oh, sometimes I'll just smile that is my work. Then you are vibrant. You have those things. I'm happy. So that's the way you want to see it. But there are learning curves. Everywhere I've worked, I can tell you I have my script, I have everything. Those are your portfolios. You have to build a portfolio for yourself. How do you build those portfolio? Is when you have written this, it gives me, I've written a test plan. I've designed my test plan. I've designed my test strategy. All these documents are your testing artifacts. They are your test portfolios. So when they say, oh, have you done this? You can go to your portfolio, bring it out, take 1 or 2 things together and you give it to another face, another organization, you bring it. So those things come together. Those portfolio help you when you move from one organization to the other, one organization to, so it helps you. That's the way we build our portfolios. Experience. And experience starts with any little thing you gain. That's the way you do. So it involves creating the test plan and strategy documents along with determining the effort and cost estimate for the entire project. So that is all are the things that is imbibed in your test plan and strategy. Activities in test planning. What are the activities? One, preparation of test plan or test strategy document. That is our activities. The second thing, selecting any tools required during testing. What tools are we going to use? Azure of DevOps. What automation tool are you going to use this time around? Is going to be a web application. So you use Selenium WebDriver. You're going to use Visual Studio. It could be 2022, 2019. It depends on what is compatible at the very point in time. You're going to use, if you're doing API, you might need Postman. So at this phase, you are going to look at range of testing tools you'll be needing to carry out this. Test effort estimation. Oh, Yemi is going to work on this project. I need Yemi 100%. This is what she's going to do. These are how many people are we needing? Okay, we need another tester B, tester C, due to the volume and complexity of the project. And after this, tester Yemi, tester B, tester C are going to be there. After, if we need more, we might call others from the work stream. You would have given that test estimation there so that you will know the effort of what Yemi is going to do. The next thing, training requirements. For example, there might be applications that you are developing, you are testing on. You might not have the training knowledge of it, so they need to put it through. So they need to give a walkthrough. We call it walkthrough session. What is walkthrough? Walkthrough, WALK, THROUGH, walk through, walk. When you do a walk through, that is it. So that's a walkthrough session. And anytime you get to an organization, you can't do any magic, because if you've not used that application, the first thing you request for is to say, I've started today, can I have some documents just to start doing some static testing, reviewing, getting the knowledge, a greater understanding of it. And also, I'd like someone to give me a walkthrough session. Simple. Walkthrough. Walkthrough. The meaning of walkthrough is, please explain to me how to use this application. But you see that it is just the tool to tell you that we need to use these big grammars. This, I don't want to use it, but I call it testing jargons. That's when they'll say, oh, she knows what you're doing. But please, anytime you go for interview, if you know 5 to 6 testing jargons that you want to use, make sure you know thorough meaning of those things you want to say. Let me tell you, the reason is that most of the time, exit entry criteria, they will ask you in interviews, verification, validation. Know those twin. The reason why I give you those words is because I want it to be ringing bell, so that when you want to go for an interview, make sure you know the meaning. When you know the meaning, is what you say out during your speech in interview. That is what I'm going to ask you question on. So if you have said, I know the verification and validation testing. Oh, great, that's good. What is verification? What validation? If you know it very well, my dear, whatsoever you're saying, at that point, anyone you know, spend time to explain it to them, so that when you explain it, you give them with example. That's what I always do. They will forget every other mistakes you have going. Oh, she's good at this. So because maybe the only answer that person needs at that very time is in that verification and validation. And once you hit that person's note, you have gotten the job. So those are those steps. Don't forget the step, the activities performed. What are the deliverables of test planning? The deliverables of test planning are test plan document. This is ISEB, we call it ISTQB, defines a test plan as test plan is a document describing the scope, approach, resources, and schedules of intended test activities. All these things are what are in the test plan. What to be tested, features to be tested, features not to be tested, what is in scope, what is out of scope. All these are embedded in the test plan. Test effort estimation document. What are the test effort estimation? This document will include the estimation of how long it will take Yemi to complete this. I am a resource there. How long is it going to take me? I'm there 100%. So if I'm there for 100%, then how long is it going to take me? So those effort, those tasks is what we need to estimate. Now, that takes us to the next part of it, test case development. Today, I'm just going to scratch test case development, but there is a full class for test case development. It's going to be a workshop and also, but today I'm going to scratch the surface so that you will understand what test case is. What is test case? Test case development includes the creation of test cases for each unit and test scripts once the test plan is ready. So let's take an example. I'm going to take another case study. Let me use a GP, a doctor. So a patient A is going to the doctor for, just let me use UK as part of the way things are run here. I'll just take it as an example. So we go to the GP, the general practitioners. So when we get to the surgery, the first thing you do at the surgery is that you have booked an appointment. You have gotten to the surgery. You want to book an appointment to say, you get to the reception. That's the first point of call. At the reception, the first thing you will be asked at the reception is, hello, Yemi. Hello, my client. What have you come to do today? You have come to see the doctor. For what? Then you might say, oh, I've got stomach pain. So that is the first point. The receptionist will first ask, the first question is, you want to see the doctor. Can you give me your details? I tell you my name, my date of birth. Oh, so okay, yes, I found you now. What do you want to see the doctor for? You've got stomach pain. He puts his there, stomach pain. Please, can you have your seat and wait for the doctor to call you? Now, the doctor is inside in his own office. He has seen that Yemi is here for our appointment. My client is here. My patient is here for the appointment. So the doctor has seen, oh, stomach pain. So let's start from creation of our test case. So before the doctor will call the patient in, he will look, oh, he says stomach pain. Okay, the first thing I'll do, let me quickly write my test case. The first test case is test condition. What is the condition she's coming for? They said stomach pain. What is the test case, the test step for it? Okay, stomach pain. The first thing I need to ask her is, when you drink water, is the stomach paining you? Don't forget, the first was test condition. What is the condition? Stomach pain. The next thing is the question, the cases that I'm going to ask the client when it comes into to see the doctor. That's what the doctor is trying to prepare before he calls the person in. He would have looked at the result, the reason why you have come to the hospital. So it would look, okay, let me write the first one. I'll ask her if she drinks water, is the stomach pain in her? Expected. What is the doctor's expectation? You should say the doctor's expectation. So the expected result for doctor is when she drinks water, I'm fine when I drink water. It doesn't hurt me. The doctor will ask again, can you lie down? When the doctor press the stomach, is it hurting you? The doctor's expectation is it should not hurt my client. Then the next thing the doctor will say, stand up and shake your body. Is it hurting you? That's the third point. The doctor's expectation is it should not hurt her. Let's take those three tests, those three samples alone. Now, when the doctor has written all the questions he's going to ask, then the next thing the doctor is going to say, the doctor will ring the bell to say, patient A, can you come into room 6? And the patient goes into the room. Hello, how are you today? You've got stomach pain. The first question. Now, the actual results. The doctor is seeing the patient now because he has called the patient in. So all the test cases, all the expected result, everything he has written down, he wants to test those three things on this client. So the first thing they will ask him, when you drink water, my patient, do you feel the pain? He's going to say, no, I don't feel the pain. So the actual result will be working as expected as he's not feeling the pain, because the expectation of the doctor is that he should not feel that pain. That's what the requirement says. The next thing is that when you shake your body, can you stand up and shake your body? When you shake your body, are you feeling any pain? Expected results. No, the doctor is expecting him to say, no, you shouldn't feel the pain. When you shake your body now, are you feeling the pain, my patient? The actual result says, no, I'm not feeling the pain. Okay, please, can you lie down on the bed, please? And the doctor touches the stomach. Oh, doctor, is hurting me. So now, the expectation of doctor was that he should not hurt him. But what is he doing now? He's hurting the person. What it means is that it has failed that condition. That's an example of a script. So the first one passed, the second one passed, the third one failed. That is a test script. I'm still going to give you a clear example, but I've used that for you today. These test cases cover validation, functionalities, and points of verification described in the test plan. So activities in test case development. 1, preparing the test case and any automation script if required, enumerating the possible action of the users and their objectives, setting the priorities of test conditions. That's the condition. Remember test condition, stomach pain. Selecting the conditions under which testing will take place. What are the conditions we selected? Oh, is she going to lie down on the bed and let me press the stomach, drink water, shake her body? Those are the cases you are testing with it. The next thing, document any conditions you're expected. You're not documenting the script. I'm saying it. Now verify and correcting the test case based on modification. So now I've called in the patient. You're looking at him. So we are verifying what is actually happening. So those are the activities. Those are the activities of test case development. I've just said it. I've just scratched the face. I'm going to come back to explain to you what the meaning of test condition is, what test cases are, what the script is. That will be in chapter 4 of our textbooks. I go further. So, deliverables of test case development. 1, test cases. This is a set of action that test a particular piece of functionality of the software. What is test data? The input is given to a software program during the execution of the test case. So what input did the doctor give? If the doctor did not press or give him water to drink when so the water is drinking when to test whether the stomach is paining him. When the doctor was pressing the stomach, when it was shaking, those are the input you are putting into. And if you remember, out of our general principle, it says testing is context dependent. So you must put something into it. You must input something for it to work. Next, test automation script. These are scripts created by automation engineers with the idea of them being run frequently to reduce the reliance on manual testing. Now, that takes us further to test environment setup. The test environment consists of elements that support test execution. The setup of test environment is done based on the hardware and software requirement list. This test environment should mimic the production environment as closely as possible to uncover any environmental or configuration related issues. This phase can go in parallel with test case development phase. So when you are doing tests, and when test environment when they are being created, we try to mirror what is in production in all the environment. It's just slightly different. The slight difference is that I am working in test environment. Nobody can see it except me until we take it to production. That's the difference. Then there are few configuration tweak, maybe due to costs. So you want to go and spend the main cost in production. So that's the difference. But everything you're seeing in test environment is the same thing you will see in production. So what are the activities in setup? Analyzing the requirements and preparing the list of required hardware and software to set up the test environment, setting up the test environment, executing a smoke test on the test environment to validate the readiness and stability of the test environment. How do you do a smoke test? They have given you a test environment to go. The first thing you want to launch the browser. If you put the URL, the endpoint, www.bluesky.com, and once you open it, it crashes. Then you immediately report it. But how to do a smoke test that when you open it, you quickly log in, you can see the face. Yes, those are smoke tests. Just to show that things are still the build that was deployed is ready and active for testing. So we call it smoke test. Remember again, there are two person again. Smoke test, sanity test. So deliverables of test environment setup. What's the first thing? The test environment is ready for test execution phase. That's these deliverables are things that must be given to us. This is what must be done before we can say that we want to commence and we want to test on a test environment. The next thing, smoke test results. Are you able to see? We have to do a smoke test. I always do a separate script for smoke test. I will label it smoke test. And I'll tell you, just smoke test it. What's the smoke test? Do we have access to the environment? Can we launch it? Can we go into it? Simple. Those are simple things that we want to just ascertain that the build is the right build that we have. So those are the deliverables. Now that takes us to test execution. What's its test execution? The test execution phase is the execution of test cases that have been created as a result of the test case development phase. This is done by testing team, where bugs are reported back to the development team for them to fix, with retesting to be performed at another time, depending on the software development methodology that the project is following. We are following agile methodology. So once a bug is found, you send it to the developer, he fixes it, you go back, you do a retesting, you do a regression. I'm going to explain to you retesting, regression. Twin brother, retesting, you are retesting a particular bug. Regression, you are looking at the bug that they are fixed, that you have retested, hasn't broken anything. That is what regression is. Regression, retesting. That's another twin that I've given you. So that takes us to test execution activity. What are the activity? Execution of test cases. Do not forget, I told you, if you have we have written 3 test cases here today for the stomach pain with the doctor. Those 3 test cases that we have written, you will never say you have written 3 test cases. You can say that in numbers, but when you are asked how many, what is your execution rate, you don't say 2 passed, 1 failed. No. Is it that you mentioned 70%, 75% passed rate? If it's the other one failed, if it's blocked, then you can mention. But once you say 75% pass, then we have a leverage, like a cut for each organization. If it's 80% or 90%, which means all the priority, we've prioritized our scripts. The risk part of it has been tested properly. We have done all those visibility. We have done all those coverages before we can now choose to say we want a test closure. Recording test results in the company test case management tool. What is your test case management tool? Azure DevOps. Reporting any defects for any failed test case. So once it fails, you report you write your bug. Azure DevOps is for both your scripting, bug, for you to raise your bug, you put it there. All bugs found, you have to do a step to reproduce the bug. I would explain to you what steps to reproduce bug, which I've told you yesterday. You need a screenshot. You need to tell us when I logged into www.bluesky.com and I used my user ID and my login. When I tried to log in, it crashed. I give you a snapshot of it. That is it. Step 1, you go to www.bluesky.com. Step 2, enter login details. Enter username as Yemi1, enter password as password1, and click on submit button.
Sorry, Yemi.
Yes.
We have a meeting with our QA mentor, please.
Okay, so that ends it today. That's fine. I would have gone. All right. So tomorrow, that'll be next week. So we'll stop there for today. Any question before we end the class? Any question?
Can we possibly get a recording of this class, please?
You are Adeshe. That's what
it's being recorded.
is doing. So
Okay.
he's not going to stop it now, but I think she'll get the link from him, then he will share it to you all. I know you've had a lot of information this night, but please, just let's try and recap on it. Any other question, please? Any other question? No hands up. So I won't give you any question today until the next class. So we'll meet again at the next class. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
It's a good. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.